The California sun spilled over Malibu that afternoon like liquid gold. Soft, warm, and almost impossibly cinematic. The kind of sunlight that makes everything look like a memory you'll replay for the rest of your life. It was the perfect day for a wedding. And for Selena Gomez, it was the culmination of everything she had ever dreamed of. A white silk canopy rippled in the ocean breeze, the Pacific glinting beyond a field of wildflowers, and 200 guests sitting beneath strings of delicate fairy lights. There was laughter, the faint clinking of glasses, the rustle of silk and linen. Everything about it was calm, elegant, romantic, exactly as Selena had envisioned it. But for Taylor Swift, sitting quietly in the third row on the bride's side, that perfect Malibu afternoon carried another kind of weight. Just 2 weeks earlier, in the privacy of her Kansas City garden, Travis Kelce had gone down on one knee and asked her to marry him. It had been intimate, unplanned, and achingly beautiful. Just them, the scent of blooming lilacs and the soft evening rain. She could still hear his voice in her head, that mixture of nerves and certainty when he'd said, "You've turned my world upside down in the best way. Will you marry me?" She'd said yes through tears, laughing, shaking, and thinking how surreal it was that love could feel so safe and so electric at the same time. But now, here she was, sitting among friends and family, pretending that none of that had happened. Her engagement ring, a breathtaking old mine brilliant diamond set in gold, one of a kind, wasn't on her finger. Instead, it lay locked away in a small velvet box back home in Kansas City. On her hand, she wore a simple vintage band that Donna Kelce, Travis's mother, had loaned her. It looked ordinary enough, unremarkable, something that would pass unnoticed. That was exactly the point. She remembered the conversation they'd had the morning after Travis proposed. They were still wrapped in bedsheets, sunlight pooling across their room. "I'm not wearing the engagement ring to Selena's wedding," she'd said softly, her fingers tracing the air absently. "This is her day, and I won't do anything that takes attention away from her." Travis had looked at her for a long moment. That quiet, unreadable look he had when his heart was full, and finally said, "You know that's one of the million reasons I love you, right?" And she had smiled because she meant it. Selena had spent 8 months planning this wedding. Every detail reflected her. The soft ivory palette, the acoustic band, the menu that included her grandmother's recipe for empanadas. It was everything she'd hoped for. Taylor wasn't going to let her engagement, her joy, eclipse that. Now, sitting in the sunlight, she watched as Selena walked down the aisle in a custom Vera Wang gown, her face radiant with happiness. Benny Blanco, standing at the altar, looked at her as though the rest of the world had vanished. When the officiant finally said the words, "You may kiss the bride," Taylor felt Travis's fingers brush against hers, his touch warm and steady. She turned to look at him and saw it in his eyes, the same emotion swelling inside her. Love, gratitude, the kind of quiet understanding that didn't need words. In that moment, surrounded by laughter and applause, she felt the beauty of it all. Love in all its forms. Friendship, devotion, and the promise of something sacred. But hidden beneath that perfect Malibu sunshine was a secret no one else knew, a secret that would soon be tested in ways she couldn't have imagined. The ceremony faded into the kind of afternoon that feels like a dream. Champagne bubbles floating in the air, ocean breeze carrying the faint scent of salt and roses, and the laughter of people who believed, at least for that moment, that love could fix everything. Taylor sat with Travis beneath the vast white canopy of the reception tent. Every table was covered in soft cream linen and crowned with towers of white roses. Strings of lights floated above them like captured stars. It was a world of soft colors, easy smiles, and a kind of joy that felt contagious. Selena looked weightless in her gown, her dark hair loose now, shimmering in the late sun. She had the glow of someone who was exactly where she was meant to be. Benny couldn't stop looking at her. Taylor had just finished her dinner, a delicate plate of grilled sea bass and lemon risotto, when her phone buzzed quietly on the tablecloth. She picked it up, hiding the screen from view. A message from her publicist lit up the screen. Taylor, people online are noticing Travis's ring looks different. Some fans are speculating. Should we prepare a statement? Her stomach dropped. She turned slightly and glanced at Travis's hand under the table. There it was, the old college championship ring he'd decided to wear for the wedding. He rarely wore it anymore, but since his usual rings were back in Kansas City, he'd chosen it without much thought. Now, apparently, some eagle-eyed fan had managed to get a photo. Even here, in a private Malibu estate, privacy was an illusion. She slid her phone toward Travis under the table, and he read it, his brow furrowing. "Should we leave?" he whispered. "Before this becomes something that pulls focus." Before she could answer, a delicate ting, ting, ting filled the air, the unmistakable sound of a spoon tapping against a champagne glass. The room quieted instantly. It was time for speeches. The maid of honor stood first, delivering a sweet, heartfelt toast about growing up with Selena, about sleepovers, heartbreaks, and the unshakable loyalty of their friendship. People laughed, cried, cheered. Then Benny's best friend took the microphone, telling a story about Benny calling him at 2 a.m. after his first date with Selena, already sure that she was the one. Taylor found herself smiling, her earlier tension slowly dissolving. The world felt simple again. Love, laughter, music. But then Selena's father stood. His presence alone commanded silence. He was a kind, gentle man, the kind whose eyes carried decades of love and wisdom. His voice trembled slightly as he began. "My daughter has always been someone who loves deeply and completely," he said, pausing to glance at Selena. "But I want to take a moment to thank someone who has loved her with that same loyalty for years, through every storm, every joy, every change." Taylor froze. "Taylor Swift," he said, smiling warmly. "Would you please stand up?" Her pulse spiked. The applause that followed was thunderous. Sincere, affectionate, but overwhelming. Taylor stood, her legs feeling suddenly light, her left hand exposed for the world to see. And then came the part that made her breath catch. "Selena asked me to tell you," her father continued, "that she wants you to give a speech tonight, because she says no one in this world knows her heart better than you do." The applause turned into cheers. People began calling her name, encouraging her forward. Taylor turned to Travis, who gave her that calm, grounding look, the one that said, "You've got this." Her heart pounded. She hadn't planned for this. She had a short speech, just a few lines she'd written in case someone asked her to say something. But now, standing under that glowing canopy, 200 people waiting, she knew this wasn't a moment she could keep small. She walked slowly to the microphone, her heels tapping softly against the wooden floor. When she looked out across the sea of faces, friends, family, photographers, and the woman who had been like a sister to her, she took a deep breath and smiled. "I met Selena Gomez in 2008, she began, her voice steady despite the pounding in her chest. "And I need everyone to understand something about 2008. The crowd chuckled. The tension eased slightly. What came next, her words, her honesty, her impossible balance between truth and restraint, would change the entire night. Taylor's voice carried softly through the tent, warm and clear, her southern lilt curling gently around every word. "I met Selena Gomez in 2008, she began again, smiling at the crowd. "And I need everyone here to understand something about 2008. It was quite a year." Laughter rippled immediately through the guests, but it wasn't just from humor. It was from warmth. Her presence had that effect. People leaned forward instinctively, drawn in by the tone of someone who wasn't just giving a speech but telling a story. It was the year of deep, deep V-necks. V-necks so low they were practically life choices, she said, gesturing dramatically. The year of neon skinny jeans that came in colors humans weren't meant to wear. And, of course, the year when everyone, and I mean everyone, said amazeballs unironically. The tent erupted in laughter. Even Selena was clutching her bouquet, giggling through tears. Taylor paused, letting the laughter swell and fade like music. Now, Selena's signature look back then was iconic. Long tank tops, basically dresses, but we all insisted they weren't. paired with skinny jeans and the tiniest little vest you've ever seen in your life. It was so small, it served zero warming purpose. Just pure aesthetic dedication. Benny was laughing too now, shaking his head as Selena covered her face in mock embarrassment. And then there was me, Taylor continued, mock groaning. Let's just say I looked like I was perpetually running late for a cowboy-themed junior prom. Cowboy boots with sundresses. Cowboy boots with sparkly dresses. Cowboy boots on the beach, which, yes, is as uncomfortable as it sounds. More laughter. Even the servers near the back were smiling, but then, slowly, the tone shifted. Taylor's smile softened, her voice lowering slightly. But here's the thing. Beneath the chaos of all those fashion disasters and teenage dreams, something real happened that year. Two girls, two kids really, met at an industry event. We were nervous, awkward, pretending we had it all figured out, but the truth is, we didn't. We just wanted to be taken seriously. And somehow, we found each other. The crowd quieted. The air itself seemed to still. That night, without even saying it out loud, we made a promise. To always be honest with each other, to show up for each other, and to never let this industry change who we are at our core. She paused again, looking toward Selena, whose eyes were glistening. And for 17 years, Taylor continued, voice thick with emotion, Selena has kept that promise. She's been there for every heartbreak, every triumph, every doubt, every joy. She's the person who answers my texts at 2 a.m. when I'm stuck on a lyric. The one who tells me the truth when it's hard to hear it. The one who's seen me at my absolute worst and loved me anyway. The silence in the tent was absolute now. You could hear the waves crashing faintly outside, the occasional sniffle from someone wiping away a tear. Watching her with Benny these past few years has been one of the greatest joys of my life, Taylor said, her voice trembling just enough to betray her own emotion. Because I've seen her find someone who truly sees her. Not Selena Gomez, the celebrity, but Selena, the woman who laughs until she can't breathe, who cries during dog movies, who makes the best breakfast burritos in the world, and who somehow still manages to text back while crying over them. Laughter mixed with tears this time. That perfect emotional blend only a deeply honest moment can create. Taylor turned her gaze toward Benny, her tone gentle, steady. Benny, you make her laugh. You love her for exactly who she is. You support her dreams, and you've become part of her world without ever trying to change it. That's rare. That's love. Then came the pause. The one that wasn't in her notes, that lived purely in instinct. Her heart was pounding, but her voice stayed calm. And I need to be honest about something, she said quietly. When Selena asked me to give this speech, my first thought was that it should be completely about her. Because that's what you do at a wedding, right? You focus on the bride and groom. But then I realized that's not the whole truth. Every eye in the tent was on her. True friendship isn't about dimming your own light so someone else can shine. It's about celebrating each other's joy without keeping score. It's about being genuinely happy when the people you love find happiness. Because joy isn't limited. There's enough in this world for all of us. She glanced at Travis across the room. Their eyes met, and for just a moment the secret they'd been keeping flickered between them. Unspoken, powerful, shared. Selena, Taylor said, turning back to her best friend, her voice breaking slightly. Watching you get married today has given me so much hope for the future. You've shown me what it looks like when love is real. When it's steady, patient, forgiving, and true. That's a gift I'll carry with me forever. She raised her champagne glass, the crystal catching the soft light. To Selena and Benny, may your love make even the hardest days worth it. May it make you both better, stronger, and braver. And may you always remember that the best love stories aren't perfect. They're real. The room erupted. Applause, cheers, people standing with glasses raised high. Selena was openly crying as she ran toward Taylor, throwing her arms around her neck. That was perfect, she whispered through tears. That was exactly what I needed. Taylor smiled, hugging her tightly. I meant every word, she murmured. When she returned to the table, Travis stood up, pulling out her chair. His hand brushed hers, grounding her. The way you spoke about love and friendship, he said softly. and still kept our secret. That's why I love you." The words hit her heart like sunlight, warm, quiet, and unforgettable. The night had deepened into something magical. Outside the tent, the ocean shimmered like spilled starlight, and the air carried the faint scent of roses, champagne, and salt. Inside, laughter filled every corner, people dancing, hugging, toasting, living in that rare, golden pocket of time where nothing existed except love and music. Taylor and Travis had been dancing together for nearly half an hour, lost in the rhythm of the soft pop ballads that played between upbeat tracks. She rested her head against his chest as he whispered something that made her laugh, that quiet kind of laugh only shared between people who understood each other completely. For the first time all night, she felt herself relaxing. The speech was behind her. Selena's day had gone perfectly. The secret had survived, or so she thought. Selena and Benny approached them on the dance floor, breathless and glowing. Selena's veil was gone now, her hair slightly tousled, a few curls falling across her cheeks. She looked radiant and mischievous. "Okay," Selena said, narrowing her eyes playfully. "I need to ask you something." Taylor blinked, smiling nervously. "What's up?" Selena crossed her arms dramatically. "You two have been acting weird all night. Not bad weird, but like you're sharing a secret. Every time I look at you, you're smiling at each other like you know something nobody else does. And during your speech, Taylor, you had that look, when you talked about finding someone who sees you completely." She paused for effect. "So, I'm just going to ask this once. Are you guys engaged?" The question hit Taylor like a jolt of electricity. The world seemed to slow. Around them, people were still dancing, lights were still glowing, but all she could hear was the rush of her own heartbeat. She turned to Travis, and for a moment, time stood still between them. His expression was calm, that steady, patient calm that told her she didn't have to hide anymore unless she wanted to. He gave her a small, reassuring nod, silently saying, "It's your call." Taylor took a deep breath and turned back to Selena. Her voice was soft but sure. "We are," she said quietly. "Travis proposed 2 weeks ago, but we didn't tell anyone because we didn't want anything to take away from your day, from your moment." For one suspended second, Selena just stared. Her mouth opened slightly, her eyes wide. And then she started laughing, not a polite laugh. A real, full-bodied Selena laugh, the kind that starts deep and ends in happy tears. "I knew it," she said, clutching Taylor's arms. "I knew it. You've been doing that thing where you touch your ring finger like there's supposed to be something there. And Travis has been looking at you all night like you hung the moon." Taylor exhaled a shaky laugh, her shoulders finally relaxing as tears filled her eyes. "I didn't wear my ring today. I didn't mention it in the speech. I didn't want to make anything about me." Selena's expression softened instantly. Her eyes glistened under the fairy lights as she reached for Taylor's hands. "Oh, Taylor," she said, voice breaking slightly. "That doesn't make me upset. It makes me love you even more. You could have made this about you. Anyone else might have. But instead, you stood up there and gave one of the most beautiful speeches I've ever heard. And you did it while keeping something like that to yourself." Benny smiled and clinked his glass softly against Travis's. "Congratulations, man," he said with genuine warmth. "You two are a hell of a match." Selena squeezed Taylor's hands tighter. "Do you know what this tells me?" she asked softly. "It tells me that even after 17 years, you still think about my feelings before your own. That's rare, Tay. That's why we're still here. Why we'll always be here." Then her expression shifted, a mischievous sparkle returning to her eyes. "But since my wedding is almost over," she teased, "you have my full permission to announce it tomorrow. In fact, I want you to, because if anyone deserves to be celebrated right now, it's you two." Taylor laughed through her tears. "You're sure?" Selena nodded. "Positive. You've spent the whole night protecting my moment. Let me return the favor." And just like that, the tension that had quietly followed Taylor all day dissolved. The secret wasn't heavy anymore. It wasn't something to hide. It was something to share, to celebrate. The four of them, Two couples bound by love, laughter, and a decade of friendship stayed on that dance floor long after the song ended. They talked about everything: how Travis had proposed in the garden, how Benny had hidden Selena's ring in a bouquet, how both men had cried way earlier than they'd planned. They talked about 2008, about cowboy boots and tiny vests and bad hair days, about fame, fear, and finding peace in small things. They laughed until their sides hurt, and for a moment, under that canopy of lights, surrounded by music and sea air, it felt like the world was exactly right. Four people who had found love and friendship in a world that had tried to pull them apart. As the night wound down, Selena hugged Taylor one last time. "Promise me something," she whispered. "When your wedding comes, don't you dare hold back. I want you to have your moment." "You deserve it," Taylor smiled, her eyes shimmering. "Deal." The morning after the wedding, Malibu woke in silence. The ocean outside their window shimmered under a pale golden sunrise, the waves rolling softly against the shore like a heartbeat. Taylor stirred awake to the faint hum of the world returning to life, gulls calling in the distance, cars far off on the Pacific Coast Highway, the rhythmic sound of Travis breathing beside her. For the first time in weeks, she felt at peace. Then her phone buzzed. She groaned softly, reaching for it, expecting some quiet good morning from her team. But the screen was already overflowing with notifications. Messages, tags, trending topics. Her name was everywhere. She smiled faintly and looked at Travis, who was still half asleep. "You ready?" she whispered. He opened one eye, grinning. "For what?" "For the world to find out." Taylor opened Instagram. Her fingers hesitated for just a moment, the calm before the inevitable storm. And then she pressed Post. The photo carousel was simple and elegant. 3 pictures from their garden in Kansas City. The first, Taylor, laughing through tears as Travis knelt in front of her. The second, their hands intertwined, the ring catching the sunset. The third, the two of them sitting barefoot on the grass, foreheads touching. The caption read, "An English teacher and a gym teacher are getting married." It was classic Taylor, poetic, understated, full of meaning only those closest to her truly understood. Within minutes, her phone began to explode. Comments flooded in from every corner of the world. Celebrities, fans, friends, millions of people celebrating them. "Finally! My whole heart can rest now. You two are the definition of real love." The post shattered engagement records within an hour. News outlets rushed to publish headlines. Fans began analyzing every photo. The world was ablaze with their happiness, and yet, beneath all the noise and confetti of the internet, there was a quiet moment unfolding that no one but Taylor would remember. Her phone buzzed again. A new message. It was from Selena. Taylor opened it, expecting a quick congratulations, but as she read, her throat tightened. "Thank you for yesterday, for the speech, for keeping your secret so my day could stay about me and Benny. But mostly, thank you for being the kind of friend who shows up, who loves quietly, protects gently, and never lets ego get in the way of love. You reminded me what real friendship looks like. I love you so much, and I can't wait to stand beside you at your wedding someday and return the favor." Taylor's eyes filled with tears. She read it again, slower this time, letting the words sink in. She handed the phone to Travis, who took one look at the message and smiled softly. "You did good, Tay," he said, his voice low and rough from sleep. "You honored her day. You honored your friendship. That takes more strength than most people ever understand." She leaned against him, feeling his heartbeat against her shoulder. "It was worth it," she whispered. "All of it." He wrapped his arm around her and kissed her hair. "That's why I love you," he said. "Because even when the world's watching, you never forget what really matters." Outside, the sound of the waves filled the silence. The world was celebrating their engagement, but in that quiet Malibu morning, the only thing that mattered was this: the kind of friendship that could survive 17 years, the kind of love that could wait 2 weeks in silence, and the kind of grace that could turn restraint into something sacred. Because sometimes, The most powerful gestures are the ones nobody sees, the moments that never make headlines, the choices made quietly out of loyalty, respect, and love. And for Taylor Swift, that was the real story. Not the viral post, not the headlines, not the diamond ring, but the quiet promise she'd kept beneath the California sun.